Hello everyone, welcome to my very first YouTube video on Python. For today I wanted to show an example of what's possible with Python using data visualization. So essentially it's just how to show insights or basically plots from data that you have gathered. Now first I will run this entire code so you can see what the overall results going to be, the visual, and then after that I will go one by one with each line and explain what they do. And by the way, what I'm using to run this is called the Spider IDE. So it's an IDE that's used favored by things with like data analysis, data scientists, as it's kind of geared for that type of demographic. As you start to see as I go through the video, this is an area that already has like plots to be shown, as well as variables once this is loaded, and then putting commands to the console, and it has really good items for debugging, which is essentially finding any errors on the code and then trying to fix them. So to begin, I will run this code, and you'll see that what this outputted was a plot. What I based this out of was put a hypothetical example where you have data for a stock price in the US with dollars and the dates, and you can just kind of see for a company called Acme how it changes over time. Now to go more now into the details of each of these lines and just kind of see, we'll start changing things here so we can start to see each time we run it, how it changes the plot. Okay, so these very first, I guess I'll go even back to this. So this is something that is just auto-generated when you create any script on the Spider IDE. So it's just kind of things that show the date when you did it, the author of the code. So this is auto-generated, and these are essentially just comments in green. So it's things that the computer won't actually read to try to run the code. It'll be just for us to read. But now the first true lines of code where the computer will act upon is these two lines that says import. Now what these are called import libraries. So for example, this is a library that allows us to basically make plots work in Python, and then this is a library that's used for doing any math calculations, and it's called NumPy. So we were to remove any of these lines, and to remove, what I'll do is called doing a comment. So if I do hashtag, this essentially turns this line offline so that the Spider IDE won't read it, which is it's sort of like a comment, but it's for just a single line. And as you saw, just doing that in itself, it threw a lot of X's here. So now it's saying that it doesn't recognize anything in this code, as it needs this library to function. And if we even try to run it, it'll see that there's an error. So these two lines are very important, as it's kind of what makes everything else work, to understand what's going on. Okay, now next is some of the lines that go with kind of putting the bare bones of just the data itself for this plot. So we're not quite at visualizing it yet. We're just kind of inputting the data. So in the beginning, I made a variable that's just the company name, which is I put Acme Corp. So you see here at the top, there's Acme Corp. And then they made a variable with dates. And what this function does, this np.arange, is essentially have a starting point of a date with an endpoint of a date, and then an endpoint of a date, and then do an increment over time of just one. So here it's not showing every single date, but if you tell Python in the console to show dates, which I will do by just pressing enter here, you'll see that it shows all of the dates that this is generated. So from 1 to 15. And then next we have what it's the prices, and it's not quite a variable here. It is a variable, but what I would more like to call it is a list. A list / array, depending on the context. So it's essentially just a collection of numbers. That's what this is. So we have, a lot of numbers all stored in prices, which will be this y-axis in the plot. Now, to actually start plotting some of these things, goes in this section right here. Okay, so for this following section, this first line will have first a line that will basically do the overall size of the plot. So when it says fig size, it's saying, this right here, it's saying figure size 10 by 6 essentially, and that's what you will see here. Although, because we have this interface, you'll still kind of be able to, play around with it yourself, just because you can scroll this. But this is kind of defining it's essentially defining a set size. If you wanted to, let's say, make this into a report and put it in a PDF, for example. After that, we have essentially the base, and now we can start putting the the data itself in the plot. So imagine before it was a white screen, just a white box. So here's literally saying plot, the dates in the x-axis and the price in the y-axis, which is these two at the top. And here is putting some more customization. So we're saying marker will equal this key, which looks like it's like an O. That means to put circles essentially for these markers. That's what these blue dots are. So you wanted to switch it to something else, like I'll put this key right here. You'll notice here, if I run this again, it switches these two now triangles. And then if I, let's say, put that back, and then I put another condition, so I can do comma, and then I want to do the color. So I put color, so color equals the apostrophes, and then I can put R, which means essentially the color red. So we'll run this, and now see, look, so I put it back to red circles, and then now it's a red color. So that's how you can further add customization just with that one single line of code. So put it back. Now this portion right here is just labeling. So we have the date at the bottom here, shows up here. The stock price is up here. And then the title itself. And an interesting part here is this right here, as you can see, it's not, the Acme Corp. It's just kind of another way to, like instead of writing it twice, I could basically call for this variable to be put in here, so that anything I want to switch up, anything I want to edit up here will show up in this title. So it's just kind of to show you another way that we can customize things. So if I was to instead just say AC Corp, it'll switch it up here, as you saw. Even though I didn't change this part at the bottom. Okay, next is we have this xticks. Now this is one that looks, I assume, will not make any sense to y'all. We've never seen this before. But what this essentially is using the concepts of the list that I mentioned before, which is up here. It's essentially saying, the xticks is saying how many times it'll display the x-axis label. And so it's saying only grab every third of the dates in a variable, what's stored in the variable. So to show you again, I'll put the dates array, and you'll see that we begin here with the first one, which matches here. And then if we now jump 3, so 1, 2, 3, oh sorry, 1, 2, 3, so the next one, that's what I'll put here now. And it'll keep going every 3 to show. And finally, another customization part here is putting the rotation at 45 degrees. And all that it's saying is to do that slight tilt to these. So we do something like 90 degrees and run it. You see when I went completely vertical. So it's all about an angle is what that is saying. So that's why 45 degrees is, perfectly, diagonal. And that's why you'll see this go back to just diagonal. Okay, and then lastly, this plot.grid is just saying whether we want to show a grid-like plot or not, inside. So right now I have this set this to false, but if I was to switch this to true, then it would, now have all this even more, personalization to really see where the, where the data is matching with the axes. Okay, now we go into the annotation section. So annotations is essentially these arrows. So just to put, that extra amount of detail with these arrows. So, here's just kind of to help point like the lowest part of the plot and the highest part of the plot. So these essentially mirror each other, and I'll go over the low example. So this whole part of the code is coding this line. First, we can write the text slow, so we put basically like putting a text box at the end of this arrow. And then this XY is essentially saying where the coordinates of where the arrow is pointing to, so the head of the arrow. So what this is actually saying, so let's type this part of the code right here. So dates 2 in the command console. You see that it's outputting this date, and as we know from this dates variable, there's lots of dates in there. So essentially saying that we want to put where the arrow is pointing at this location where this date is, which would be right here. So you see it's kind of the first day, January 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. That's what this is. And then the prices is the same thing. So imagine just it kind of goes back to the second. Oh yes, I forgot to explain this part. It's actually the counter in Python starts at 0. So it's actually saying 0, 1, 2, and that's why it shows it like this. But same thing for prices. So it'd be looking at this list of numbers. It's 0, 1, 2. And that's what you see here. It's basically right below it, 99. So it's just to help do the coordinates of where the head's going to go. And same thing for the back arrow. And I did do a little more interesting part here with this -10, as I essentially allowed a little bit more of where it's going to point at. So for example, if I remove this 10, first I'll show what prices 7 is. So prices. So you see that's 109. If you look at this prices list, you see that here is 9. And if I imagine this is 109, and then I subtract 10, so that will be 99, and that's going to the same area right here. If we hadn't put this, it would have been left at 99, and you'll see what happened in just a second. See, look, I went all the way to where 109 is up here. So that's why I put that -10 to just kind of help it guide it, exactly where I wanted to go. Now that was the position itself. So what we just did there was put the head of the arrow and the tail end of the arrow. And now we can do other things like customizing the color of this too. So we can make the arrow red. We can do a little bit modifying with, if we want to still shrink it a bit, so we can actually shrink it. We put a number in there, so actually make it smaller. And if we do those two changes, you'll see it became red and it actually shrunk. So it's kind of like the higher the number of shrink, literally the more it shrinks. So put that back. And then this was optional. It will just try to make this a little bit more, whoops, how do I narrow it here? a little more centered this low text box, but it won't really affect too much. It's just to help, you know, if I was to remove that, so if I remove this and just leave it be, you see it just switched a tiny bit this low. So it was all an attempt to just put it in the exact spot that I want it to be. This next line is the same thing, but for the high one. Exactly the same process. You play around with it a bit, see where it makes sense, where to put this line. All right, and now we're almost done. Just a couple lines left to kind of go over. So this part is just to add a legend to it, which is this, you know, where we see the stock price that is just put. This had a green as default, but I can change it to, you know, a different color if I wanted to. And you can do things here with like changing the marker as well. You might not be able to see it, but I'll change it there, and you can even change to stock price. I can put USD again, and you'll see it change up here. So, oh, oops. Yes, because this got too big and it like changes positioning because of it. But you saw the triangle part change here and the text. So yeah, it was because it got too big with the USD. So we would have had to do more code to like move it. Then this line is just something that I found to kind of help with making this default bigger. So if I remove this, it'll just kind of shrink it, even if I use this interface. So it was just a line that I found could help with, you know, showing it to you guys bigger so you can see what's going on. And finally, let's say you wanted to save this plot. You could just use this line. So it's like plot.savefigure. This is naming what you want the output to be called, you know, the file. So it's a PNG. And do just a couple more settings for it. And finally, to then display this graph on here. And then lastly, I should show you guys the variable explorer. This is important. So that was in the plots tab to see the visuals, but you can see here also the input that Python is using as you go through this, you know, as it runs through this code. So you were to click on here, you can see all this data that we had is also in here. So to help visualize, you know, what it's using. And as I showed y'all, its index or its beginning, it always starts at 0. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until the end. So that's how a lot of Python is not the only language like that. There's others out there that also start at 0, but not all of them. So it's always important when you start to program in a new language or just learn new language to know how it starts to count from 1 or from 0. This is the dates that I told you about. It's just that it doesn't support showing it when I click it on here. But as I showed you before, is another way. If I just type in dates, which is the name of this array, it'll show you here. And finally, here is the Acme Corp variable. It's already kind of here, so it just kind of shows it to you right here. But yeah, that was just a quick example. I hope whoever's watching learned something. You know, found this interesting. And yeah, thanks for your time. Oh, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.